we all know this is an important topic, RG. I don't think we need to explain why it's important, but I do think we need to explain where the U.S. is moving juxtaposed to other jurisdictions, right? So with me are three really good friends, known a long time. Catie Stefano, she's the director of comms and marketing for Online Gamblers, which is a great affiliate and marketing company that is really working hard to try to grow their brand in the U.S. with all the struggles that are out there. Thankfully, we got a reprieve in Massachusetts for at least another 35 days. We'll see what happens. Then we have Paul Foster, the CEO of Crucial Compliance. Paul, good to see you.
Thank you.
Nick Hill was going to be with us, but he was smart enough to know you're a better addition.
He's next door.
I know. I'm convincing. And George Rover, who I've known for about 12, 13 years now, since the inception of iGaming and sports betting in New Jersey. He's the head of Rover Strategic Advisors. George, good to see you.
Greetings.
So, first question to you, Catie. Where are we going in the U.S. with RG? We've seen Michigan, Illinois, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, New Jersey just developed their standards, right, that were just put into place on January 1. What do you think about the seminal topic of how we're going to leapfrog ahead of other jurisdictions, but we don't look at the U.S. as one jurisdiction, right? It's 50 different jurisdictions.
No, exactly. Yeah, you have to think like that. That's what everyone says. It's like different countries, all the states. But how we're going to do it in leapfrog other jurisdictions, I think we have to, one thing that we're doing right, I have to just mention that, is that we're doing licensing. That's not happening anywhere else in the world, that we're licensing affiliates. So I think that's really good. And how we can leapfrog in responsible gambling, I think we can educate players more on how to find legal license, how to bet responsible, and making sure that the operators we support are only licensed as well in the states that they come from. I think that's a start, at least.
George, that great throw out. Talk about, remember when we first started, we're approaching our 10-year anniversary.
Yes.
We didn't initially focus on licensing affiliates. Why is it important to license affiliates? And as a former regulator in the toughest jurisdiction in the globe, and I have a little vignette I want to share after George's opening, what does licensing in a rigorous way affiliates, how does that help RG and help penetrate the black market?
Yeah, I think when we first launched in New Jersey, we had a lot to do in a short period of time, and we literally just didn't have time to focus on affiliates. Folks in the agency, including myself, really didn't know about online gaming, and we were told by the governor, get it done in 270 days, and he said, get it done or get fired, and we got it done. And we had heard about affiliates, but we didn't focus at the launch. The year after, we started to become more educated about affiliates, and we realized how really important they are to the industry in driving business, in commercial success. But now we're also understanding how affiliates can play a role in responsible gaming. And I think one of the key components to licensing affiliates is, from the New Jersey standpoint, we made it clear that you could not be licensed as an affiliate and do business with operators if you were still doing business with an offshore site. And that was a big decision, and I know in the first year we had many conversations anonymously with these offshore, these affiliates servicing offshore, and they're like, well, we can't give up our business. And we're like, listen, you're gonna have to make a tough call. How does it involve responsible gaming? Well, obviously, the offshore companies are not held to any standards on responsible gaming. Underage gaming, obviously you don't pay taxes. These are all the reasons why people play on the offshore sites. So by taking control of the affiliates, we're now going to attempt to choke off the black market and bring those people into the regulated market. And those affiliates, as Catie says, and many others know, those affiliate marketers know that RG needs to be part of their mission.
Yeah. Did you want to say something?
No, but for a sustainable market, we have to do that. Like, if you look at how Massachusetts now, we're not going to do maybe affiliation. That would have led to a bigger black market in Massachusetts because all of the black market affiliates would have popped up there. There wouldn't be any legal regulated affiliates there to educate the players in Massachusetts about where to find them.
I remembered, George, and you will remember even better, Dave Reebok saying 9.5 years ago that the DG was not the policeman of the world. Wasn't the DG's job, but the DG has really doubled down on not only approaching affiliates that are in black markets, but other ancillary service providers. And can the regulators in the US do more to kind of clamp down? Because I know you should have been a cop. Or a prosecutor, right? That's what you love doing.
It is indeed. Listen, we can always do more. Obviously, the sense is that the federal government is not going to take this on. And when you're a state agency, you don't have that extraterritorial ability to go even to another state, let alone to another country, to chase someone in their bank accounts. I laid out a couple plans to do that. And of course, I was told that, George, we don't have that authority. So I tried to convince them. But yeah, listen, I think the affiliates is one of the key ways that the regulators have determined that they can kill the offshore market by 1,000 little cuts. And if we can take away some of these big affiliate companies, and Bill, you've represented some, I've represented some, where massive affiliate offshore companies have sold to regulated affiliates. And in essence, we've taken that expertise and all those players, hopefully, and transferred them to the regulated market. It is going to be, it's a tough battle to deal with the offshore market as a state agency, but affiliate marketing and licensing is one way that the state regulator can do something.
Good. Paul, from the compliance perspective, I just want to throw out a couple of points, and I want you to go because you bring a far different perspective than the three of us. The Tonka bill, Congressman Tonka from New York, to ban ads. Talk about how you think that could negatively or positively impact RG. Two, what do you believe we can do better in the states, not one particular state, but broadly speaking, in terms of compliance to impact RG?
Yeah, so I think the whole idea of banning ads it just doesn't work. If we look at where it's happened, especially during COVID, a lot of countries around the world actually banned the ads. And it just didn't work because in reality, what you want to be doing is controlling what's actually said in those ads. So it's the messaging of those ads that's important. Because, you know, an ad that uses a brand but tries to get a message across is far more effective than just banning ads. Because somebody will always find a way to advertise a gaming site. They just will, because that's the nature of what we do for a living. So, you know, when I hear people say we're going to ban them or we're going to limit them, people just get around it. And we live in a digital economy. So, you know, okay, you ban it off TV, but it's all over the internet. And the problem with starting to do bans is that it gets pushed to areas where you don't actually get as much control. So on TV, you can say you've got a watershed, you can't advertise until 8 p.m. You can say no to sports matches. You can do all of these rules and regulations. By banning it, you lose all that. And then it just goes online. And then can you really control where that message comes across? So I don't really agree with it. I think it's quite a failure to do it. When we look at the overall RG impact over the states, I think we're really at the start of it. One of the benefits we've got of the world is you can learn. And you can learn and you can educate yourself from what's happened elsewhere. I don't think any country in the world has actually got it right yet. And I think it's the only people who can actually get it right are the operators themselves, because it's all data driven. It's about education. It's about trying to, create a sustainable player model. And in the world we live in today, this churn model where you get people in, you take all their money, they go away, then they sign up to another site, again, is not good for the industry. So, why should we be doing RG? Because it creates a sustainable player model. And that's really important.
Thankfully, Tonka is a Democrat in a minority. Right? So his chance of getting a bill moved into Congress is slim to none, thank God. But what concerns me, perhaps you too, you all, is state legislators looking at that legislation and coming up with ideas. We know, all of you know intimately well, what Entain's been trying to do through Martin Litschke's leadership, coming up with the 12 principles, working with the DG and other regulators across the country to try to promote self-regulation. I don't think the regulators are buying it yet, but the 12 principles have been announced. FanDuel, DraftKings, Caesars, Resorts, BetMGM have all embraced it. What can we do as an industry to better protect the consumer, the player? And what can we do to convince the regulators that we're serious about it, as opposed to just putting up a 1-800 number and checking a box on your consumer-facing page?
I think, first of all, like licensing, I think all the verticals in gambling have to be responsible some way, whether it's payments, it's affiliation, it's betting products. Like everyone has to focus on regulation some way. And I know, like the New York Times were trying to make fun of us because we were self-regulating, but I think that's the step forward. We don't want to wait for regulators to impact like very, very harsh restrictions, like in Spain, where there's a ban on sport sponsorship, for example. That would be detrimental for the sports community in the US, for example, because of here we do a lot of sponsorships on leagues as well, not only teams. So I think to help the players, I think we have to educate regulators, like we have to have sports athletes like talking about responsible gambling, like how to do it safely, and yeah, that's on top of my mind, to keep it sustainable, basically.
George?
Yeah, listen, I think, no surprise, I think New Jersey is going to get it right. I think they realize it's all about technology. And I think New Jersey, with their new standards, I don't know if Afshane's out there in the midst. He was a former colleague of mine who was very much involved in drafting these standards. But the point is Director Rebuck at NJDGE determined that we need to bring technology, algorithms, AI, even ML, we need to bring that to bear and then create automatic trigger points where we help the operator say, listen, you need to respond to this person with an email for this type of a trigger. They use 2 different credit cards in a week, right? Okay, so that's a little unusual. Or they maxed out a credit card in 1 month. Should that trigger an email? Should that trigger a phone call? And so I think DGE is clearly on the right track. And again, it's about working with the operators, because again, what they did is they asked the operators to submit their plan to them. It's not like they said, do this. They evaluated all the submissions and they came up with these standards, these 10 key points where they look at withdrawals, deposits, and then they also know that there's a lot of companies out there now who are vendors who are coming up with all types of ways to see how players play and if they're vulnerable or not. And so I think that's where it's headed, and I think it will be effective.
Paul?
Yeah, I think, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, we had nobody externally doing this. So there were no literally options off the shelf you could go and buy. Every company had to go and develop their own. Now we do have quite a few options out there. Are they perfect? No, but at least they start to be developed. There are new entrants coming into the market to develop software, to develop algorithms, and that's fantastic because it shows a maturing market. And it also shows that vendors are starting to buy them. So operators are actively looking for these solutions, which is great. How can we make it better? Because we need to share. Operators who are at the forefront, the likes of Entain, the likes of Flutter, if they can share more about what they do and the actual detail to the smaller operators or the new operators, we're going to get a much better standard moving forward. So I do think a lot of it is about collaboration of the operators. And they have to be willing to say, I know we've developed this, I know it's cost us a lot of money, I know it gives us a great way to look after our customers, but if we share it with the rest of the industry, then hopefully all customers can be looked after.
You may disagree with this, but if you do, please do so, and if not, please elaborate. It seems to me that the industry has been a little bit shy about pushing back on certain RG. For example, you all know this. Senator Lester, head of the Ways and Means in Massachusetts, came up with some really crazy stuff like credit card bans. Like, what's the point of a credit card ban? All that does, in my opinion, we talked about this, Katie, is it pushes people to the black market. And so, but the industry does, there's one-offs like you and perhaps me who go in and try to advocate that, but the industry's not embracing that. They feel a little nervous about telling a legislator, don't do this.
Yeah. Political driven, anything politically driven when it comes to RG tends to fail. Because somebody's trying to make a point, or exactly. Literally they're out there saying it for the sake of saying it, doing something for the sake of doing it. You know, the UK has been very famous for this, and it doesn't work. So, you know, as an operator, you need bodies who will go up and stand up for what you believe in, and be able to elaborate. You know, credit card bans just don't work. You can just load up a prepaid card with a credit card and then play. You can go onto your online wallet, load it up with a credit card, and then play. So, you know, a lot of this activity is not very well thought through. So, you know, when you hear political-driven legislation, I worry a lot.
George?
Yeah, listen, with operators, it's pretty understandable. Operators are licensed, and, you know, they have to be very careful about how they deal with regulators. I mean, I had many meetings as a regulator where I'm like, listen, tell me how you really feel. I'm not going to hold it against you. Like, I really mean it. They really want to be careful in pushing too hard, especially on something like this, right? Because it's kind of a hot topic. It has to do with people's personal lives. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's understandable why operators are concerned about taking on a legislator or a regulator on these topics. It's because in all the other matters I dealt with as a regulator, there were plenty of issues that they were just really didn't want to push too hard on it, because you guys have all the power, you guys have my license, I don't want you to hold it against me. And so I think developing some type of a dialogue where you can really be candid with your operators, and they know you're not going to remember it the next time something else comes up and you're like, oh, I remember you tried to push this, you disagreed hard on this. It's really important, but I'll tell you, it doesn't happen that often. Licensees are afraid of the gaming regulator. It's that simple.
Yeah, I would just think that when you're talking to a jurisdiction that hasn't legalized it yet, that's the time to weigh in.
Totally agree.
Before it's in the regulator's hands, right? Yep. Obviously, after the law is passed, if we're talking about amending or changing something, that's different. But you make a very good point. The fear, because the most valuable asset for an operator is their license. I think that's clear, right? Catie, we've talked about this so many times before. We're one newspaper headline away from some politicians, son, daughter, mother, father, sister, brother, league is laughing, from this whole thing imploding. Yeah. And how do we avoid that?
Like, so for the credit card thing, like my personal opinion is that I don't think players should gamble with credit. Like I know it's very American, you gamble to get like points and you get stuff. Everyone does that in the US. But being from Europe, I don't think you should borrow money, like, because you're playing for money that you don't have. I don't think that is responsible, and that's why I think it's fair that it should be not allowed. But to Paul's point, you can always buy a paid-up card, whatever. But I still think that from a regulation standpoint, I don't think it should be allowed, just the credit card, to help limit people be more responsible, maybe think an extra time, do I really want to go all the way and buy like an extra digital card just to do a deposit? I don't know. Because the point is, credit is money you don't have, right? And we don't want them to gamble for that.
We also know that the Europeans are a debit card-based society. Yeah. We're not, right? And I've always been, and this is where George and I, who are from two different political points of view, are aligned on, I always felt troubled by trying to prevent somebody from being a gambling addict by pushing across, it's like the gun issue. Right? Yeah. All we're doing is helping criminals get guns. We're not really solving the problem. And I hear what you're saying, because you've convinced Bo Gray, because he's now marketing no credit cards. But that's the way to approach it from an RG perspective, not from a legal perspective, I think. Closing remarks. Paul.
Yeah, I think there's so much more we can do. Work with the regulators, work together. You know, we're really good at technology. We've got great data. Start to use it and start to look at the players for the long term, not the short term.
George?
Yeah, again, I think the New Jersey initiative is going to really prove to be very effective, and I think it's going to get better and better as people share information about what products are working. And I also agree, Bill, you know, what you guys are doing at Entain. operators really taking a front step forward and saying it's not all about the bottom line. I think those two, I think we're going to see really good results.
Oh, I'm glad to hear
I'm
that from
positive
you.
about that.
Good. Catie?
So
Last word.
Yeah, my closing remarks would be that I think every vertical in gambling has a responsibility to whitewash the industry, and that if you want to learn more about responsible gambling, go to onlinegamblers.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, please help me in thanking Catie, George, and Paul. Have a good afternoon.